James Cameron's 1984 sci-fi horror romance The Terminator is a searing piece of modern anxieties that managed to distill a new age of fears into a modestly budgeted chase movie. It's a story of love, fate, and terror that's part slasher, part technophobic warning, and it's all balanced on the edge of an inevitable apocalypse. Decades later, The Terminator, directed by James Cameron and written by Cameron and Gale Ann Hurd, may seem small in comparison to the countless inspirations that have taken its central themes and blown them up into massively budgeted action epics, but the terror of The Terminator has never felt more real. Even if you've never seen The Terminator, you probably already know the plot. So let's keep the synopsis short, okay? Sarah Connor, played by Linda Hamilton, is a normal young woman suddenly targeted by a cyborg from the post-apocalyptic future known as a Terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger, while Kyle Reese, Michael Biehn, is a human resistance fighter who has come back in time to save her. Sarah is destined to give birth to John Connor, who will grow up to lead humanity in the war against Skynet, the artificial intelligence that has destroyed the world, and the Terminator aims to stop that from ever happening.
Come with me if you want to live.
Seen in the context of the decades and way too many sequels that have happened since The Terminator, it can be easy to think of this franchise as an action-heavy special effects extravaganza. But Cameron's original was made on a relatively small budget of $6.4 million, and at a time when all Cameron had to his name was working on Piranha 2: The Spawning, before getting fired from the director's chair. The Terminator is small, it's intimate, the limitations of its budget can be seen throughout. But so much of this is why Cameron's original film isn't just my favorite in the franchise, but one of my favorite sci-fi movies ever. As time has gone on, I have not only come to love The Terminator even more, but an undercurrent of hopeless, overwhelming anxiety at the center of this neon-drenched pre-apocalypse has spoken to me more and more. The horror of this doomed romance was once a hypothetical terror, but it's only become increasingly real. The Terminator's sci-fi story elements and romance may add complexities to its plot, but this is actually a horror movie, and specifically, a slasher movie. Think of the defining plot elements and it becomes clear. An innocent young woman targeted by evil through no fault of her own. An unstoppable killer whose outer humanity disguises an inhuman evil within. A desperate struggle to survive that disrupts the normal, everyday life of our protagonist. Women picked off one by one as the killer locks onto his one true target. And a confrontation between the final girl and her stalker that forces her to move beyond the limitations she thought defined her. James Cameron credits a nightmare he had about a metallic torso holding knives as the original inspiration behind The Terminator, but it was another genre classic that made the film into a reality, John Carpenter's Halloween, released in 1978 and solidifying the slasher subgenre. Oh, and also Harlan Ellison's Outer Limits episode Soldier, which led to Ellison threatening to sue for infringement and getting paid lots of money. My contemporaries were all doing slasher horror movies, said Cameron. John Carpenter was the guy I idolized the most. He made Halloween for $30,000 or something. That was everyone's break-in dream, to do a stylish horror movie, and it really was the launching pad for the story. The Terminator is Michael Myers, a soulless force of evil that tirelessly pursues our heroine. But instead of the boogeyman, it's a cyborg from the future. Instead of knives, it's guns. And instead of a sleepy suburb, it's the cold urban life of Los Angeles. As Kyle and Sarah fight to survive and grow closer, the danger of the Terminator and the dark future it represents close in from every side. One of my favorite things about the Terminator, and what helps set it apart from the rest of this franchise, is its grungy neon aesthetic. While every sequel has extrapolated the ideas of Cameron's original film, none of them feel like this low-budget, desperate struggle for survival. T2 is a mega-budgeted action extravaganza. Terminator 3 is just T2 done badly. Salvation is a grimy, post-apocalyptic war. Genesis is something no one wanted to see. And Dark Fate tries to bring the franchise back to life by pretending all the bad ones didn't happen. But they all build from the core of the original. Structurally, the Terminator is as lean and efficient as its titular robot killer. It's intensely focused on its three central characters and constantly pushes them forward as the film coalesces into one long chase. Its ideas are clear but have enough sci-fi complexity to make you think about them after the movie's over. Sarah may cling to Kyle's belief that
the future is not set.
But Cameron's film is a causality loop. John had to send back Kyle to conceive him, and Sarah had to tell future John that Kyle was his father so that he could send him back. All of this had to happen. It's fate. Skynet will come online. The nuclear apocalypse will happen, and John will lead humanity to victory. Of course, T2 works in counter to the original in Cameron's duology. Thanks to Sarah, John, and the Terminator, Skynet is actually stopped and the apocalypse is prevented. But none of that is in the language of the original and is, of course, refuted in further sequels because money. Clearly, one of the big social anxieties that defines the Terminator is a fear of technology. At the time the film was made, computers were beginning to see their first major advancements, with early internet prototypes and personal computers like IBM and Mac being made. Decades of sci-fi speculation on artificial intelligence was becoming closer to reality as real-world tech advanced. The current technology of the time is scattered throughout the Terminator, linking the modest advances of the present to the terrifying robots of the future. In the language of the movie, that Walkman may not kill you, but it has more in common with the Terminator outside your door than you'd like to believe. Cameron coined the term tech-noir to describe the style he aimed for in The Terminator, a blend of classic film noir moodiness with cyberpunk science fiction. Thematically, the dangerous romance of Sarah and Kyle echoes the murderous sexiness of old noirs. Visually, those neon nights are tech-noir to a T, replacing the moody Venetian blind interiors with a pulsing aura. Aesthetically, Terminator is my kind of thing. You got lasers, you got exterior and interior smoke, you got lots and lots of neon, you got dang-ass punk freaks, you got LA at night. This thing is like living inside my head. Cameron and cinematographer Adam Greenberg light Los Angeles as a cold and hard place. With most of the film taking place at night, blue-tinged lights and pulsing neon make the present feel much closer to the desolate post-apocalypse. And the post-Skynet world is a hellscape. The outside world is filled with rubble as giant laser shooting machines hunt for any remaining sign of life. Inside isn't much better, as the remaining human shelters are smoky, dirty, cold, and dark, filled with sadness and desperation. Even when compared to post-apocalypses like The Road Warrior, which also helped inspire this film, the future of the Terminator is one of the last places you'd ever want to be. Now, nearly 40 years later, the anxieties of the Terminator feel both more and less possible. Yes, artificial intelligence is more advanced than ever, but the ways in which it threatens the world is less in it gaining sentience and the will to destroy, and more in how groups use it to track and manipulate billions of people. In the 21st century, an AI-sparked apocalypse would be less giant robots with guns and more man turning on itself thanks to our own manipulations. But this only serves to highlight a fear that is translated through the Terminator's sci-fi horrors, living on the edge of an inescapable apocalypse and being powerless to stop it. Beyond the Terminator's anxieties, Cameron's film is also about two people finding each other in the worst situation imaginable and stealing a little moment of happiness before everything comes crashing down around them. Yes, Kyle is a scuzzy, bad-smelling, hobo-looking, mansplaining, paranoid psycho from a robot hellscape, but he's also Sarah's one true love. Maybe not the best choice in partners, but what can you do? Look, I wouldn't exactly say that the central romance of Terminator is aspirational, but it works in the context of what Cameron is trying to say. While Sarah starts as the damsel in distress, this is ultimately her story, becoming the woman she needs to be for the future of humanity. James Cameron has a specific approach to women in his movies. Clearly, he's in favor of having strong, well-developed female protagonists at the center of his stories, with Sarah Connor and Ellen Ripley being two of the foremost examples. But he's also obsessed with using both motherhood and stereotypical action cliches in turning them into heroes. Compared to a lot of women characters in action movies, it's still pretty refreshing, but it could use some more nuance after multiple iterations. Still, the Terminator is the start of Sarah's journey, eventually becoming the hero that Kyle could never be.
You're a terminated fucker.
The vulnerability of their new relationship is highlighted by Schwarzenegger's Terminator, a hulking specimen of masculinity on the outside and the harbinger of humanity's destruction on the inside. As Kyle, Bean is lean, ragged, and desperate, the complete opposite to Arnie's unstoppable killer. And while we're here, I'd like to take this moment to discuss something very important I've never talked about on my channel. I love Arnold Schwarzenegger. Not ironically, not begrudgingly, not with excuses. Arnie's my favorite action movie star, and while the Terminator isn't Arnold in full-blown megastar mode, he has this undeniable presence to him that's already there, while still early in his career and playing the most toned-down, emotionless version of any Terminator he'd play. So, although he doesn't get too many one-liners or even all that much screen time, everything he does here is iconic.
I'll be back.
That's the power of Arnie. Say what you will about his acting, but when he's in his lane and able to work that charisma, he's unstoppable. Conan the Barbarian, a great sword and sorcery adventure. Total Recall, biting satire meets awesome action. Eraser, the first R-rated movie I ever saw, and Arnie fights an alligator. Jingle All the Way, Arnold, Be My Dad. Predator, the second greatest movie of all time, right after Evil Dead 2. In The Terminator, Schwarzenegger's truly menacing, and he has the aura and intimidating presence needed to sell the threat of the killer, especially in this film, which withholds so many details about what a Terminator exactly is until the very end. You may not realize it given the context of the rest of the series, but we never see a fully revealed Terminator until the climax, as our villain's flesh-freed endoskeleton chases after Sarah and Kyle. Those robot moments, while iconic, highlight the financial shortcomings of Cameron's film. Arnie's impromptu eye surgery is disturbing, but Stan Winston's carved-up face is pretty fake-looking. The endoskeleton Terminator looks great in some shots, like rising from the flames, or when a puppet is used in frame with other actors, but the stop motion is pretty janky and poorly matted in. Not that I can really fault it. Terminator's budget limitations were the reason behind the shape the story took. While Cameron had the idea for a future robot killer, he realized that he could never get financing for a film that completely took place in a post-apocalyptic future. But he could get financing for a film that took place in the present, with just a few minutes in that future. The plot, budget, and themes of the Terminator are inextricable from one another. Change one, and you don't have the same movie. There is a continual tension between the present and the future here. As Cameron opens on the hellscape that awaits us, everything we see in 1984 is filtered through that ominous lens. Everyone thinks Kyle's crazy at first, but the truth about Skynet is never questioned by the film because Cameron shows us firsthand what's coming. No matter how much Kyle may scream and shout about the fate that's coming, he can't change anyone's mind besides Sarah. Anyone else that encounters the truth doesn't have long to live. In the larger ideas of the movie, the Terminator himself isn't just man's fears of an apocalypse come to haunt our current day. He's the forces of the larger world that push us into each other's lives and tear us apart. How many days together do we truly have? None are guaranteed. Kyle's tragedy is only to have a fleeting happiness. Sarah's burden is to know that our future is bleak. There's this enormous anxiety right smack in the center of the Terminator that's always been there, but has become more and more apparent to me in recent years. It's the idea that you could have your whole life together, find love, and have a child, just for the entire world to fall apart before your very eyes. Maybe that seemed more metaphorical or hypothetical in the time that the Terminator debuted, but it seems more literal than ever now. At the end, Sarah is pregnant and driving off into the coming storm. Is this the life she wants for her baby? Is this the life anyone would want for their child? When you bring a child into this world, you hope for all the good things that are possible in life for them. Then you read the news and think about what you've faced in your own life, and you can't help but worry about what life will have in store for them. All you really can do is keep them safe and provide as good of a life for as long as possible. But someday, they'll leave your life. They'll go out into that world you have no real power over, and what happens to them will be out of your control. It's enough to send you spiraling if you think about it for too long. Sarah and Kyle's love doesn't reverse the coming apocalypse, because despite their destiny, they're still just regular people trying to stay alive. There is a glimmer of hope within the central driving ideas of Cameron's film, but it's found within a terrible reality. Sarah's son will save humanity, but only within the context of almost the entire world dying. Who would wish that for their child? All we can really do is be brave and love them as much as we can. As the blissful ignorance of the past and its horrifying future draw closer and closer together, the Terminator becomes more frightening than ever. Thanks for watching today's video, and the first horror-centric video of 2022. If you've been following the channel for really any amount of time, you know that horror plays a huge role in the topics I cover. So obviously you're going to see many more horror-focused videos in the future. And while the Terminator can fit into several different genres besides just horror, I think it's a major aspect of why this movie works so well. And really what sets it apart from the rest of this franchise, because as time went on and the budgets got bigger, these movies became more and more about the action and the sci-fi elements and less about the horror. But the original Terminator plays like a straight horror movie for a lot of its runtime. And when combined with its larger themes and the aesthetics of the film, I think it's pretty easy to see why I love this movie. Personally, it is my favorite of the franchise, with T2 right behind it because that's a great action movie. But those are the best of the series, and it's really not a comparison between these two and the rest of the franchise. Although I do like Terminator Salvation, feel free to boo me. The Terminator is just one of the many 80s movies that I really want to cover on the channel, and it's just a process of me slowly ticking them off one by one. I would love to hear your thoughts on the Terminator franchise in general, and even your rankings of every Terminator film if you have one. And if you haven't seen every Terminator movie besides the first two, well, that's okay. As always, a big thank you to my patrons for their continued support. If you'd like to support me on Patreon, it's only $1 a month for early access to every video and exclusive audio-only reviews. And I'm hoping to get at least one exclusive audio review out on Patreon every month. I'm looking forward to bringing you a huge variety in the topics that I cover this year, and if these first few videos of 2022 have been any example, you can tell that I'm going to go in a lot of different directions this year. But I hope that you'll stick with me for the ride. Until the next video, I hope that you're taking care of yourselves and looking out for one another. See you again soon.